today I've been talking about fostering a 360 feedback culture. It's really important because you can build all the psychological safety that you want, but being able to then take action and hear from the people around you about the changes that are potentially there to move you forward is really key. And sometimes there are just organizations and teams that aren't necessarily set up to be able to do that on a wide basis. Feedback often comes from leaders very much driving their outcomes, and you don't necessarily hear what's going on for those below them, or indeed from the people beside them as well. And very rarely do they get enough feedback from those below to be able to give some good thoughts of diversity of thought and innovation in terms of how to be able to achieve the outcomes that the organization is doing. So being able to recognize the key aspects around what feedback looks like, how to set that up within a culture has been the main focus of my talk. Feedback's really important. We've worked with particularly senior leadership teams, senior leadership boards, and quite often they don't necessarily naturally get the feedback through. For good reason. There's a strong sense of hierarchy within fire services, and that is there to make sure that there's a really clear chain of command with the kind of work that they do, particularly when it is at its most dangerous, its most reactive. That decision-making process needs to be really clear. But it goes much beyond that. That's just part of the job. When we're thinking about developing fire teams, when we're thinking about developing strategies, and more thinking about the likes of inclusivity and belonging, that feedback needs to be able to flow both ways. So what we tend to find is that it's difficult sometimes, not just for the leaders to ask for help, because they need to be seen as strong, as powerful, for no one to necessarily question their decisions under duress, but they need to also be able to show themselves as human. They need to be able to show that vulnerability that they may not have all the answers all the time, but rather are themselves works in progress and continuing to have that idea of a growth mindset where they're trying to iterate their productivity, their leadership capacity time and time again. Now they can have all that intent, but unless the culture is one that encourages the leaders to be able to get that feedback in an honest and contextual way from the people around them and below them, they're always going to be on a bit of a hiding to nothing, because they're not really going to know the changes they need to make in order to make the difference. Common faults with feedback: not listening, really, just trying to use it as a tick box exercise. Oh, we've done our annual review, we've had our conversation, and therefore there's the decision. What's happened in the other 364 days of the year? Feedback is often not seen as important unless it is in that formal setting, but actually the most powerful feedback comes in the moment, because being able to get that feedback in the moment gives a stronger sense of context, allows a greater understanding of application of that feedback, and also most often, because it's actually in practice, it tends to be the kind of feedback where that learning is retained far stronger as well. So while there's absolutely no harm in doing reviews of performance over a period of time, the most powerful feedback is often not given in the moment when it should be most impactful. So the three key points for good feedback that I would recommend is, first of all, understand the context, see the person and the behavior behind what's actually happened. Understand more about why they've made the decisions. The second one is really thinking about active listening and empathy. Not putting yourself in their shoes and thinking what you would do, but recognize actually what would they do? Do they have the tools, the experience, the knowledge to be able to act on this feedback? Because that's the third thing that needs to happen. The third thing needs to be, you need to have a solutions focus and an action off the back of that. Giving feedback just on somebody's personality is not going to work. It's not going to be the thing that's going to give people a sense of belonging. It's not going to give them a sense of opportunity to develop. It will just simply make them as individuals feel criticized. And more, that's the thing that the people are looking to avoid at work. They want to be seen as a whole person, but they want their work to be the stuff that they get the feedback on. Similarly, I think that if there's 3 key points for receiving feedback, listen carefully to the feedback that's being given. Quite often we have what's called negativity bias, so we'll only hear the bad stuff, and that can often blind us to some of the other feedback that's going on. So really consider all of the feedback. You don't have to act on it straight away. In fact, sometimes you don't have to act on the feedback at all. Sometimes you need to be able to take that and think about other pieces of feedback that you've had, particularly if it's in a similar area, whether that's behavioral, whether that's performance-based, and make some decisions about what you want to do from there. The final thing that I would always say is approach receiving feedback with grace. If you're getting criticism, understand that it's probably coming from a very positive place in order to be able to help you grow. And similarly, if you're getting positive feedback, take that with grace and an element of humility, but see it again as an opportunity to learn. Where am I doing really well? How can I apply what I've done in this situation to another situation to continue my growth? It's been a fantastic experience. This morning already, not ignoring the elephants in the room, not ignoring the hard lessons that need to be learned is really powerful. There's been some great feedback and some great vulnerability from leaders as well, being able to recognize the journey that fire services are on. And it's really powerful to see an organization such as AFSA really taking the lead in so many different ways as well. I feel as though, the energy in the room is one of solutions. It's one of taking action rather than sitting and just complaining. So I'm really excited to see what happens post this and how AFSA is continuing to have a positive effect on fire services around the UK. Aspire to be outstanding, particularly around feedback. I think it's having that idea of a growth mindset. So all feedback can be useful. It isn't always critical, but being able to keep on thinking about, through every kind of feedback that you're getting, sometimes even unsaid feedback, people being able to create eye contact with you, people being engaged with the kind of work that you're doing. That in itself is really positive feedback to really keep on building yourself up. Not necessarily from an ego perspective, hopefully from a confidence perspective, to think about what outstanding looks like from you. I guess the build for feedback is, what does success look like for you? If you've got that idea of the goal and what outstanding means, take that feedback. How is that going to help you continue on your journey to being outstanding?